We've gotten stronger. I feel Jared around us a little bit more every day, and that's been helpful. Uh, our kids are the ones we worry about the most, and it hasn't hit them yet. We've been keeping them distracted with their friends, and that's really helped. When he comes home, finally, it's going to hit all of us. We know that. This is the calm before the storm, and the outpouring of support from the community, from the nation, has just been, we can't even describe how big it's been. It's phenomenal. We're so thankful for everything everybody's been doing, but we're staying strong right now. I know his mom is doing as well as she can. I stay in touch with her, and she's staying strong too. So,
take us back. Let us know a little bit more about your son. I talked to some people that lived in the neighborhood and said he was a great big brother. He used to walk his sister home from school. Tell me about him as a young man.
That was one of his most favorite things to do, was to meet his sister at the bus stop every day. Rain, shine, 110 degrees, didn't matter. He was there. And if you knew my daughter, you'd understand that she's a little smart aleck, and it would load up her book bag on purpose to make it even heavier once he started training, and she justified it as, I'm helping my brother, when in fact she was just trying to make his life more difficult. But he didn't care. He loved it. He looked out for her. He looked out for everybody. All his friends know that he was a little guy. He wasn't a real tall guy, and but he looked out for the little guy, if you will, and that meant everyone. Anyone who needed help, he was there. He was a great, great person.
You described him as sweet and generous.
Selfless, definitely. He never put himself first.
So when did you know he wanted to go into the Marines?
Well, it started when he was just a little guy, but sophomore year or so, it really started to come to fruition. That's when I noticed he started doing a lot of research online, studying what he would need to know, what he'd need to be trained physically to be able to have to do. Every movie he wanted to watch was something to do with the military. He knew his calling was to help and to serve and to protect, and being a Marine was going to enable him to do all those things. So,
were you a military family? What were your thoughts about him wanting to go into the military?
Most of my family was all Navy, and Jared, being the black sheep that he is, he thought it would just be comical to become a Marine so he could talk about water Ubers and things like that. Now, most of my family was Navy, though, and anytime you go into any service branch, you're just proud of them, no matter which branch that is. So, I myself never served. Unfortunately, I went straight to college, but my son made me proud when he said he wanted to serve.
Can you tell us how dedicated what your best friend was telling us? He was already training before he even enlisted. Tell us a little about that.
So he was like a lot of the teenagers these days that don't rush out like we did when we were younger to get our driver's license the day he turned 16. He didn't care. He forced myself, I'm sure his mother, to drive him up to the training office in St. Peter's to go and actually train with these guys. He wasn't even a recruit yet, and just so he could learn these things. And again, that's what impressed me the most, is that I wish I would have seen that in him as a student. Not that he had got bad grades, but his focus never really became more evident than when it was involved around the Marine Corps. And his training never stopped. He just constantly trained, and finally when he was able to enlist, he went ahead and signed up himself, and then his mother and I actually had to go in and sign for him because he was just at that age. And then as soon as he graduated, he went straight in.
Tell us about the pride you had whenever he graduated.
Oh my gosh. When you go to a Marine Corps graduation, it is an experience that is undescribable. You're so honored to be a family member, a parent, a sibling of a Marine that's graduating. The ceremony is absolutely beautiful. It's choreographed. You see all these soldiers, or all these Marines walking in unison, and there's just hundreds and hundreds of them, that just makes my heart bleed, to see all these men and women that have volunteered to do what they do. When I heard of when COVID was going on, and those poor families who had sons graduating, sons and daughters, and they weren't able to attend due to COVID, that broke my heart, because that is something that you just can't miss.
Tell us more about that. You're so proud to serve in our country.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You're so proud that he served our country.
Oh, absolutely. you hear on the news all the time about heroes and things of that nature. I took a phone call before I came up here. I finally got to speak to his commanding officer that was there. He was 20 meters behind him. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but he shared with me that his group, golf company, had 9 service members were killed out of the 13 were from his company. And he said, I've been in the military a long time, and I don't use the word hero loosely. I rarely use it, actually. He said, but in this case, these guys were true heroes. He said, at the Abbey Gate, they're now known, by the way, as the Abbey Gate Marines. That's what they're calling themselves. He told me, he said that there was a lot of commotion, a lot of mad rushing to the gate all at the same time. And these Marines, the ones that weren't already on the wall, were rushing in there to help. And he said, I've never seen bravery like that. And they all did it and would do it again. He said it was just an amazing thing to see. He says, I know you're proud of your son, but if you could have seen what I've seen, you probably couldn't even describe how you feel about your son. It's insane. He said, these guys are truly heroes in every sense of that word.
He was helping to save lives in the largest military airlift in the nation's history.
Mm-hmm.
A moment in history, he was there serving.
So he explained to me that the company that guarded the gate there was able to get out a little over 30,000 people between Afghans and Americans. And he said that was the most out of any of the locations that they were able to get people out of. So he said what they did when this all happened enabled, and he unfortunately doesn't have a head count because of all the chaos, but he said what they did and how they reacted to this enabled a lot of other people to still get through, even at that time, and essentially save their lives. So that alone just makes me feel even stronger and better about him.
Hearing people call your son a hero, what are those feelings and what are those emotions?
A lot different than I have ever taken the word hero before. I mean, I'm sure I'm as guilty as anyone else. When you hear about a hero passing away, you're like, oh, and when it hits home like this, obviously it's different, but just knowing my son, our son, the way he grew up and how he tried to take care of everybody all the way through, and then when this happened, I could just see him out there. Like, that's his rush to do what he was doing, giving up his water and his food to people that were hot and hungry. That's the kind of thing he would do. And I guarantee you, if he was here right now, he would do it again.
Tell us about how you were notified. Was it early Friday last week?
2:40 in the morning. They unfortunately went to our previous address that the Marine Corps had on file because we had just moved a year ago. So that poor family got the knock on the door before I did. I know the gentleman who bought my home, and he called me the next day, and they didn't know who was at the door. They called the police. It was 2 in the morning, and he said we didn't know what to do. And the police showed up, and obviously they got that figured out real quick. And the police were kind enough to look me up and found my correct address. And so they passed that on to the CACO officers, who then showed up at our house approximately 40 minutes later. And the knock on the door came. I was sound asleep. I came to the door, I flipped on my porch light, and all I remember seeing was all the ribbons and medals on their chest pocket there. And being half asleep and not expecting to see these guys, he told me there's 2 reactions when we come to the door. Either they bawl and they drop, or they were just stone-faced, and I was completely stone-faced because I was in utter shock. They probably had to tell me 10 times before it actually sunk in what really happened, and that they weren't here for an injury report. This was something much more serious. It's the worst feeling in the world that you could ever imagine. As soon as they left, I just collapsed and started crying. I mean, that's all I could do.
And in a short time, you were on your way to Dover. You see his remains come back to the United States. What was that experience like?
At first, frustrating. The Marine Corps has been insanely helpful through all of this, and they were desperately trying to get us a commercial flight out to Dover to be there on time, and that wasn't happening. They couldn't get us a flight, and I do want to throw kudos out to a company, Raider, who stepped up and donated a turboprop plane to get my son's mother and I and our 2 Marine CACO officers out there on time, and that was amazing, and I can't thank them enough for what they did. We landed. They said we were landing at Dover Air Force Base. I've never been there, and it looked like our Chesterfield Airport, Creve Coeur Airport. You know, like one strip that Cessnas take off of, and I'm like, what is this place? But then they carted us off to a hotel, gave us food. The next morning is when they transported us to the real base, and then that's when you really get to see an awesome sight that Air Force Base is. And saw the C-17s, the C-130s, all of them all over the airport.
What do you think about the way it was handled, how the military handles a situation like that, bringing the remains of fallen service members back?
Beautiful, very honorable, very respectful. They have a Marine Corps men and women that are there to take each of the caskets off the plane one by one. It's a very slow process. There were I witnessed 11 of them. There were 2 that didn't want any media coverage, so we saw 11 of these happen, and it probably took about 5 minutes per one to come off of there. You don't care. I mean, you're just standing there, and they don't announce the names. They prepped us ahead of time that your son is number 10, you know, or your son or daughter is number 3. Jared was number 10 coming off, and but it's very honorable. I mean, you sit there, and I'm almost thankful I wasn't allowed. They have you barriered off, so we weren't allowed to go up to the casket at the time, and that made it a little easier, which I know that's not going to be the case at Lambert, but there's the obvious honors and salutes going on. Having those 4-star generals, other heads of state there was nice. There's a 4-star admiral there, and you know, watching these gentlemen salute and give their respect to each fallen individual was really moving. And you know, it's one of those things when you're the family next to you, you don't even know them, and they start breaking down. You start breaking down with them. You know, not only for their party, but yours as well. So.
I know you mentioned Lambert. Can you tell us some of those plans that will be coming in the week?
A lot of it's very unclear still. Very highly likely chance it'll be Lambert, but again, those details have not been released to me yet. I still don't even have a date yet of when he's returning. We're all anxious to get him back, of course. My understanding, it's going to be a rather short notice of the timeline and when he's coming, but once he's here, ground transportation's already been arranged. I've been speaking with the captain of the St. Charles Police Department, county, I believe it is, and they're planning on giving him everything he deserves, and they'll be shutting down the interstate procession. I believe Patriot Guard is going to be part of this. It's going to be a sight to see, and you know, with the anniversary of 9/11 coming right now, I think all of Americans in general are dying to wrap their arms around something. And yeah, I'm sorry it took this to really make it happen, but maybe this is the launch pad that we all needed. You know, as Americans, we need to come together. All this nonsense has got to stop across the board, you know, and I hope that this could be the platform that helps really boost that. If I had any say-so in the final outcome of this, that's exactly what would happen.
You know, sorry.
What do you think about the support from the community and all those who are coming forward who want to be a part of this procession?
Naturally, everyone says, I'm so sorry for what's happened and what can I do? And we all do it, and all of those are appreciated. Honestly, the best thing I can tell somebody right now for us would be to support the foundation and show up the day that we lay him to rest. And I want the city to see an outpouring of support for him that they've never seen to that magnitude. No offense, of course, to any of the fallen before that, but you know, the city and the country need to come together and honor these fallen heroes. And I think, from what I've been hearing, it's going to be massive, and I'm so thankful for that. Every one of these guys deserves it, in every one of the different states that they're going to be having these in. So
I'm sure if he was looking down on us, which he is, What would you be saying to us today?
Dad, toughen up. And he's been my strength. He's been my light. He's the reason I'm doing everything right now. I respect his mother. She grieves different than I do and doesn't want to talk to people, and I totally respect that. I feel I owe it, in my way, I feel I owe it to him to be out here talking to as many people as possible, spreading the word about who he was, what he stood for, why they did what they did, and how things happened. And he would do it again, like I said before. But I would hope he's proud of me. If I could get him to be 1/100th of how much pride I have in him right now, I would be impressed and happy and content. I hope I did the best I could as a father, and I know his mother feels the same way about everything she could do for him, and we all wish that we could have him back, of course.
If there's one thing that you wish that people will remember Jared as, what would that be?
Just one thing?
Or several things. I was thinking about that. I was like, there's not just one thing, but one big message.
We've had so many of his friends reach out and tell and share so many different stories about who he was, and most of that I knew, but there were little things that came up that I didn't know, and I'm not going to mention those individually, but one thing you could take away from Jared's life is that he would have done anything for you, given anything for you, and that goes for anyone. And I think that's exactly why he joined the Corps, because that's what they stand for. One of my CACO officers shared a Ronald Reagan quote with me, and it really hit home, and it sums everything up for me. He says that some people will spend a lifetime wondering if they made a difference in this world. Marines don't have that problem. And my son doesn't have that problem. So he made a difference.
Tell us about the foundation, lastly, the foundation. If anybody wants to contribute financially, where do you want that money to go?
The St. Louis Heroes Network is who we've joined up with. They take care of the Backstoppers organization, raising money for them. They're a non-for-profit 501c company. My wife and I, Jared's mother, we're all blessed financially, so none of us want any money at all. We would like any monies to go into that foundation. It can be located at stlheronetwork.com/help-a-hero. They can contribute to there. All the contributions are tax deductible. We want to do so much good with this money. We're talking right now about erecting a monument and honoring him and/or the 13. We're talking about doing scholarships over at the high school he graduated from, and do this on an annual basis, so where we can get applicants coming to us on an annual basis, so we can select someone to be honored with the scholarship that's in his name, in his memorial. I've been in talks with the city of Wentzville's mayor about a dedication of some sort to him, in honor of him and the other 12. On an annual basis, we want to contribute something back, give something back. And you've got Wounded Warriors Project. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of all the things that we could do. And that's what my goal is now, is to remember him and his legacy, and make his legacy one that people won't ever forget.
Is there anything else you want to add or include?
No, I just really appreciate everybody coming out. I really appreciate you guys allowing me to do this at one time, so I don't have to do it over and over again. Today's my last day of interviews. I owe that to my family, and we're just going to start this healing process, and that's it.